Hello and welcome back to the Yanzhou campaign. Last time we took down the Zhong, the false dynasty to our south, and got peace with the Huainan. Then we went back to war with them so we could finish them off. We fought a decisive battle where we took Hefei with a siege draw out, then two relatively easy battles, clearing the path for us to move to the south and attack their next castle, the next city at Liujiang, but after we did that we actually took out all of their dynasty and the Huainan are now defeated. We're now in the turn after the defeat of the Huainan. We've got a couple of things we can do with the armies that are still around here. The first thing is nothing in a way. They need to stand around and make sure the 500,000 Sun clan stacks don't get up to no good. And Gaoxun will take an army to the west because we know that one more region was turned into a rebel province by the fall of the Huainan. Might as well go take it before anyone else does. What we're actually doing as our main campaign is building up in the northwest corner of our domain, past Luoyang, ready to attack into the west to take on the Liang, the guys who control the Emperor. I can't move a spy through to find out what they have, so it's going to be a little bit of a gamble really. We'll just go in there with some armies and see what happens. Pointlessly training up my spy there by spying on a wise man works pretty well. Now here we are one turn later. Leading the attack will be Liu Bei, our Liu Bei memorial guy. First we just lay siege to the city that's slightly along the river, and with that comes the actual declaration of war. I wondered again if my allies or their allies might join the war, and they don't at first at least. There's the official declaration, and apparently they don't like me also, but that's okay. Now all we need to do is stack up really. We're forming a huge queue in the limited space we have available to push into enemy territory. 6 stacks, hopefully that will be enough. As I said, we don't know anything about what's out there, so we're just going to go for it and see what happens. We should be able to recruit more stuff nearby if we need to. Gaoxun makes it to that rebel town just in time. Looks like a purple army from Jingzhou to the west was coming in for a cheeky siege, but we've got it now. It's an inevitable victory, just need to wait for that place to fall, and we'll have an extra town around here. Won't that be nice? At the start of the next turn, we learn that some allies are going to get involved in the war. Our ally the Nanyang are going to join on our side, and the Imperial Han, the Emperor's house, who are technically controlled by the Liang, have declared war on us, but we're doing this to save them, so we'll make it up to them. We get some news about relations. Yuzhou don't like us, and I was concerned by that. I thought, where are they in the list, and eventually discovered they're the guys to the north of the Yuan faction who are our allies, so it makes sense that they don't like us. Also, Unaligned Peoples doesn't like us, but I don't think that actually means anything. Anyway, back to our main assault. Liu Bei doesn't have much to do here. The force inside isn't very powerful. It is commanded by the enemy prince, but that doesn't save them. We take them down with a quick auto resolve. I even was generous enough to offer ransom, but they didn't take it, despite it being quite a small amount. We're going to have to leave this army here to control public order for a little bit. Luckily it's okay right now, so no rioting or anything to deal with. So we're now down one army already, but that's not going to stop us. They'll be back in the game later anyway. The next army moves on to lay siege to Tong Pass, another easy victory, and once we're through there we will be able to actually access enemy territory. Had some issues here because we can't really stack up ready to move through because there's no space. Need to stow those agents away so we can form a camp next to the pass. A small aside here to talk about the naval battle that's been going on between us and the Sun clan. It's still going on. Just thought I'd let you know. Over the last few turns we've been annihilating all of their fleets, and it's just been very easy since we've got one gigantic navy that's taking on everything very easily. Our objective here is to blockade their main trading ports to try and reduce their presumably gigantic income supporting all of those armies. Now back to the main attack. The Tong Gate goes right down, not enough troops to resist our auto-resolve power, and we're in. With this we can go into enemy territory. Liang aren't happy about it, but they'll learn to love us. First we send a spy through, and it reveals there's kind of a mess going on. It looks like Gansu and Xiliang, the two factions to the general northwest of Liang, are both invading at the same time and seem to be doing quite well. They're freely walking about in Liang's territory. We can also now see Chang'an, which is our target, guarded by a full stack garrison, and it's also the first large city type settlement we've seen, the max level city. There are two ways to approach it, from the east and west, but neither can be used right now. We just need to shuffle forwards and prepare for our attack, which will have to happen next turn, or at least we'll think about it more next turn. In the next turn, as another brief aside, I decided to bring up the graphs thing that shows you the general score of the other factions, just to confirm that Sun were destroying everyone. They're not that far ahead of us, but they are the dominant faction and have always been the dominant faction because of their start position. Not that I actually intend to attack them or anything, just thought I'd look at that for absolutely no reason. Now back to the war once again. There's actually a siege draw-out opportunity right there at Chang'an. Looking inside, they've got some strange troops, including Nanman troops. These are the guys from the bottom left of the map. They're somehow up here at the moment. There's also a Nanman diplomat, which is highly suspicious. Something's going on around here. Anyway, as I said, there is that siege draw-out we could go for right there with Zhang Liao. But because this is the big final battle that I was looking for, I didn't want to cheese it with a siege draw-out, even though it is a legitimate strategy. I wanted to go for the deliberately harder option of attacking the city, since it's our only chance to see the large city map, after all. So Zhang Liao starts going around to the west to do this. On the way, apparently, there's a Sun Clan army up here. Not what I expected to see. They're a very long way from home. The only possible thing that could have happened was they sent a diplomat up here and bribed some rebels or something, and now they've joined the Sun Clan and are just trapped here, since the Sun Clan's territory is behind loads of impassable things from this part of the map. Anyway, sent one of my armies to go and besiege Feng Yi there, just so it's not getting involved in the whole affair, and the other armies will move on, ready to attack Chang'an next turn. Here we are, in the next turn. The Sun army, for whatever reason, moved to go just across the bridge to Chang'an, so we now have to go through that Sun army to get to our target. Well, fine. Zhang Liao goes over to the bridge and then we can attack them. I was worried this would cause a siege draw-out, but Sun are not allied to Liang, so it doesn't do that. And they retreat. There we go, now we can get that siege going at the capital. Gonna need quite a lot of siege equipment to get in safely, not that there is a safe way in, but to do the battle basically. So we'll leave the siege going for a few turns, and in the meantime we're now safe to take down the small armies that are hanging around here without causing a siege draw-out by accident. So there we go, we chase one army away. Xiliang are happy that we're attacking their enemy, so that's good. It means they're less likely to betray us while we are right here, and potentially vulnerable to a betrayal from them. There was one more army hanging around here, so we'll go after them as well. The auto-resolve's being annoying, it's not stack wiping them, so men are surviving all over the place, and we have to keep chasing them down to try and trigger an end to the battle. Doesn't really happen, but doesn't really matter either. I throw a third army in to support our attack coming from the west. A fourth army comes in from the east to just stand around there and potentially help us out with those armies outside the city. This left me with one more army that I haven't really committed in the area, and I decided to just leave it standing around in the open doing nothing to decide later. And during the end-turn sequence, they actually did get a chance to do something. Xiliang are attacking Liang somewhere near our force, and we can join in with this nice broken message box. The enemy just retreats, so nothing happens there. But it gave me the idea to look into this huge mess that you can see right here in more detail, and I realised, despite there being armies all over the place, nobody's actually besieging the city. So we can just sneak in here, attack this small group of Liang troops, and cause a siege draw-out, potentially stealing this city from under the noses of all of our own allies. We even get some Gansu troops coming in to reinforce us. The only possible issue is that the enemy army in the city is surprisingly good. It's full of elite, upgraded and experienced troops. They may outclass us. However, this is a golden opportunity, so we won't be missing it. Let's go into the battle. Our allies from the Gansu decided to form up in the middle of the field, and I rushed to form up next to them. Where they formed up, they were facing the onslaught of the enemy's main army, so I very bravely decided to take on the negligible force off to the left with my much bigger army. Unfortunately, my allies didn't take the brunt of the attack. Some of the enemy diverted off to come and attack my part of the line instead, so we're going to end up having a bit of fighting, on our right at least. On the left, we are just dealing with a force so small that you can't really see it. It's out there somewhere. Shouldn't take us too long to cut them down, hopefully. There was a gap between our armies and the enemy wisely break through. However, we can use that gap ourselves to go and rear attack the group attacking our ally and help them out. I had sent 2 units of cav to help our ally, but they ended up getting stuck in a weird position there, so I called that off. They're going to come back and take out the enemy force going through the gap. On our left, our cav just need to wipe out these tiny groups and hopefully get everything out of the way, so we can swing around for a general encirclement of the enemy's position. Our horse archers take down the captain of the smaller army, one guy there doing a crazy contortion to do a trick shot with his bow. That's that sorted out really then. Now we are going to fold in and be behind the enemy as much as possible. Where we're already engaging the enemy, things aren't going all that well. As I mentioned, the enemy army is better than ours, so just straight up fights don't necessarily go all that well. It is also on hard difficulty, which will be exacerbating that. It doesn't necessarily matter. Since we are at the end of the campaign, we can actually afford to take losses now. There's no strategic disadvantage to a Pyrrhic victory, but it's nice to win more cleanly all the same. My horse archers and the left side of my army are chasing away the enemy's archers, and that's going to be a long skirmish route sort of thing as we chase them towards the edge of the map and try to stop them from escaping, while I micro a few units to see if we can save our allies and the troops we already have engaged with the enemy. There go the archers in the background there, going to be a slaughter as we turn those skirmishes into routes, but things aren't so easy with these little fights. They've got these squads of armoured infantry who just won't go down to even our armoured infantry who keep getting surrounded and taken out. I tried to take down this squad of Han armoured infantry, they're just called, with my heavy cav, but the charge wasn't very good and didn't do all that much. These guys remind me of no Daichi Samurai. They've just got an absolutely massive sword. Easy money. They're also strong against archers because of their heavy armour. So no obvious counter to those guys, just need to somehow kill them, grind them away. Since they're an elite unit as well, they don't just rout like many of the other units. The archers are having a very bad time. In amongst them is an enemy officer, you can see him right there, so taking him out is a priority since the siege draw out isn't possible if he still lives. We've got loads of men on him right now, but all is not quite as well as it seems actually. Here we are about a minute later after the grinding fight came to an end and it offered me the chance to leave, and I foolishly said yes because we'd got 90-something% of the force, but I forgot we actually hadn't yet killed the officer in amongst the archers. So, even after they execute here, the siege draw-out is going to be a failure. A handful of troops will be allowed to survive, and they're back inside the city. Extra annoying, however, I guess it doesn't have any consequence in this case, because we end up standing next to the city, no one else is besieging it, so we can just be the ones to besiege it, and then our allies will even be forced to aid us, just auto-resolving it once we've got some siege equipment together. We will end up stealing it from under our allies' noses then, and that's what we really wanted. Over the end-turn sequence, the Gansu asked for trade rights, and we even negotiated an alliance at the same time, so now I am actually properly allied to them. On top of Xiliang being allied to us, this means this whole area is looking pretty secure once the Liang are dealt with. And now we're ready to make this auto-resolve, load of guys support us, and we easily storm into the city. That's all looking good. I thought we might as well try and take all 3 of the Liang territories here to completely wipe them out all at once, and we're even ready to do all of the attacks in this turn, so that's one. Now we'll pop over here and just quickly auto-resolve this other one, since we do have quite an advantage, and the losses at this stage don't necessarily matter. However, bang, it's a disaster. We actually get annihilated making our attack. The enemy lose only 200 men and they take out almost our whole army. Our force falls back, the enemy released the prisoners, so we're not in quite as dire a situation as we could have been there, but still, that was nasty. Something went very wrong in that attack, maybe because the enemy officer was so much better than ours. Seeing that this army is in trouble, especially with a Liang force just to the south, I made some space and threw some mercenaries in, so now it's a bit stronger, just about matching the numbers of the nearby Liang force. That's something. But yes, looks like Feng Yi isn't going to go down so easy, and there are some decent officers and highly trained troops inside, so I guess that's why we ended up losing. In response, I wanted to send another officer because I still wanted to take all of Liang's territory, so I'm going to bring one of the stacks that is hanging around Chang'an to go and sort that out once I can finally manage to give the order, that is. There we go, we don't need all of those armies at Chang'an anyway. In the next turn, there's a bit of a mishap though. While walking towards the city, I end up standing in front of this hidden unaligned forces general, and now because I'm in his zone of control, I lose my movement and I actually can't go on to lay siege. That sucks, and my whole plan of simultaneously taking all of these territories is now totally out the window. At least we can bring back the defeated force to resume the siege. As long as we don't attack with this force, we're okay, because the army inside won't be enough to win if it tries to sally at the very least. So there we go, we have a chance to get our siege equipment going one turn early. Now though, we're going to pop down to Chang'an because we're not going to wait for that battle to conclude. Let's do this now, since if we wait, the enemy will lose men to attrition, and we want this battle to be a challenging one, since this is the big one. And indeed, it is probably the strongest army we've faced so far. Tons of elite units, loads of upgrades and experience in there. We do have 3 armies to attack them with, but of course we're going to do this manually, so it's going to be one at a time. It's going to be not as easy as that balance bar says it's going to be. This was a very long fight, so I'll just show you the beginning of it for this episode. We are attacking a large city, and you can see it is very large, taking up most of the map. They've also got big walls and ballista towers to defend it. They've got men all around their walls, at least in the western half of the city, which is where I'm attacking, so no particular good places to attack. We're just going to go for it where I deployed and see what happens. We are very much just going for it and seeing what happens. Half the time I'm not even checking what's on the wall or what's nearby. This was an instance where I actually did check and I was like, oh, that's crossbows, might as well go around the corner and not run right at them with our light infantry, who will just be absolutely annihilated by those crossbows. So good of me to bother checking there. Elsewhere, I'm not going to bother being so cautious. In the northwest, I'm advancing right into their crossbows. Here, I almost advanced into those heavy archers with this siege tower, but I decided not to. We're going to keep things on the slightly cautious side of things, but not really. Here's where the heavy swords were attacking against the enemy's crossbows. They took a few losses on the way in, but nothing substantial. The north and south attacks are looking good. Both walls have become very vacant. The enemy started moving their troops around to mostly defend against my western attack, and now we're going to have an easier time capturing those other gatehouses. So here's the first action on the wall as my heavy swords get up their ladders and attack the crossbowmen, who just somehow didn't kill very many of them on the way in. I guess because they're a heavy unit they can sort of get away with just running through the enemy's crossbow fire. Further down the wall we've got some halberds, some heavy halberds in a siege tower ready to deploy, the rams almost in position at the west gate, and in the southwest the archers and crossbowmen here are running to the south wall to defend that area, giving us another chance to advance the siege engines. Here are those halberds I mentioned, jumping into a big pile of enemy heavy troops. There were some heavy halberds of the enemies here, but they ran away as I arrived, and we ended up fighting with a load of archers. Same deal for those swords, of course, very slowly working their way through crossbows, but more men are on the way. As I said, they're vacating the north wall to go and support in the west. So we are going to have to start pushing in harder from both the north and south to support our western attack and try to exploit the fact the enemy are opening gaps up, like right here where some halberds have now got onto the wall for free in the south and are desperately needed over here in the southwest corner where these swords with their siege tower are in a bit of trouble. We're facing not only enemy swords but a load of heavy ranged units as well. We will lose that fight unless we can reinforce it, but reinforcements will be on the way from both directions thanks to those vacant parts of the wall. At the west gate, our ram opens things up for us, giving us our first definite way into the city. Although that said, at the same time I'm ordering some heavy swords up on the north wall to go down the stairs and attack some random halberds who are hanging around at the base of that tower. That's a very fire and forget order that we'll be coming back to, I think, in the next episode's part of this battle. Here at the west gate though, the enemy charged out with some heavy swordsmen of their own, and I didn't have any melee units nearby to actually stop them. Wasn't so bad though, since I had so many archers hanging around just waiting for something to do. I started hitting them from all sides with arrows, and while they are armoured, so it's not really killing them, it's staggering them, stopping them from chasing me, and will eventually inflict casualties on them, so we'll work our way through that unit. It's going to be the same sort of thing up on the walls, where we just need to work our way through all of the defenders, which is going to be pretty deadly for our men. We're certainly not trading very efficiently in many of these fights. In the southwest in particular, we're pretty much getting annihilated. The enemy's heavy archers are holding their ground, we're struggling to hack our way through even some of the weaker enemy units, and our reinforcements have been delayed by the deployment of enemy reinforcements. I'm going to leave things here now. Just for this episode, we'll come back to the very messy conclusion of this battle and the conclusion of the entire campaign in the next and final episode.